From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Welcome. A famous Capoeira Master has been buried in Brazil after he was killed by supporters of far-right presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro. Moa Do Katende was stabbed to death after a public forum where he expressed his support for the Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad. Several cases of violence against left-wing voters were reported after the first round of the presidential election. Several artists denounced the barbarity of this murder.
We cannot reduce Brazil to this barbaric thing. The murder of Moa Do Katende is a sign that one shouldn't forcefully follow in the way that other people blindly think. It is backwards. It is fear of responsibility in civilization.
And meanwhile, thousands of protesters have marched down Sao Paulo's iconic Paulista Avenue against dictatorship and fascism in Brazil. The marchers rejected the first-round victory of far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro in the presidential election. They're calling for all democratic and progressive forces to unite to defeat Bolsonaro in the second round on October 28th.
I didn't expect to leave this to my children. This wasn't what I fought for in the 60s and 70s. We faced the military, and now we have to go to the streets again because of ignorance, because of craziness. I feel responsible for this election result. I think all of us failed.
I'm very scared that there's a chance that Bolsonaro will become president. Our mission is to make no our answer, and I think we have 18 days to do it and try to solve the situation.
And Bolsonaro's medical team has announced that he is still not healthy enough to take part in scheduled TV debates and other campaign activities. The far-right candidate has repeatedly missed the television debates. But presidential candidate Fernando Haddad has told journalists that he is even willing to debate his opponent in the hospital if necessary, hinting that Bolsonaro may be intentionally avoiding open discussions.
Our fear is that he uses ruses to avoid debate. I'm prepared even to go to a hospital room to debate him. If that's what it takes, I will go to the sick room so that we can debate Brazil.
Another social leader has been killed in Colombia, this time in the Putumayo region. The leader of a farming association, Otto Valenzuela, was shot dead, allegedly in his home. His murder was reported immediately, but police authorities say they couldn't reach the area. 4 social leaders and 3 indigenous leaders have been murdered in the last 48 hours. Our correspondent Paola Fernandez tells us more.
Killings of social leaders continue in Colombia. 170 leaders have been murdered since the beginning of 2018. The last case has been reported in the department of Putumayo, where campesino leader Otto Valenzuela has been killed. He was a pioneer in the promotion of the replacement of illicit crops. There is outrage in the area since they say the community called authorities and they were told there were no police forces to come so far away. The victim was also a relevant figure in the organization of the community to fight for their rights. The UNCHR mission in Colombia has urged the government to take measures to protect social leaders in the country.
Staying in Colombia, farmers are supporting the integral national program of substitution of illicit crops. However, it seems the program could be at risk of being implemented.
Close to 80,000 families, part of the integral national program of substitution of illicit crops, are facing uncertainty. They say the government of Iván Duque hasn't paid attention to the program.
With
the previous government, we discussed about the volunteer eradication of illicit crops by implementing the program in different departments and municipalities of the country. Since then, we have been in standby. We haven't had any conversation with the new government.
Former President Juan Manuel Santos said that the budget for this program was approved, but reality seems to be other.
For
2019, we need a budget of 2.5 billion Colombian pesos, but the government is assigning a small budget for this and also for the integral agricultural reform. We will need an additional amount for a land fund, but it is not planned yet.
Experts say the success of the substitution program is based on the amount of public funds. According to analyst Juan Carlos Garzón, it is difficult that this government will change their way of fighting drug trafficking.
In Colombia, people talk about drug policies, but the country does not really have one. We have a bunch of tools used independently. It will be a real challenge to create policies that work in the coming years.
Meanwhile, social organizations have reported 43 leaders working on the substitution of illicit crops program have been killed.
The third most powerful storm ever to hit the U.S., Hurricane Michael, has been downgraded to a tropical storm after causing havoc in the Florida Panhandle. When Michael made landfall, it had winds of 250 kilometers per hour, which have since been reduced to 110. At least 2 people have been killed in the storm. A state of emergency was declared in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. The authorities have urged residents to prepare for heavy rains, as Storm Michael is expected to intensify again over the weekend.
64 years, and this is my first time I went through one. That I worked for the power company and retired, so I saw a lot of storm duty, but this one here was the worst I've seen. So it was good. You see what it did around here. It snapped trees like they were toothpicks. It was nothing to it. So I'm glad I'm still here. I'm glad I survived. I'm glad the car made it. Everything was close, and so it all worked out.
Hurricane Michael left behind flooded homes and streets. It blew the roofs off many houses and destroyed shops. Many vehicles were submerged in water. Powerful winds toppled trees, street lights, and road signs. 250,000 homes and businesses have been left out without power. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Venezuela's foreign minister has criticized what he called interference in his country by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. After meeting the Chilean president on Wednesday, Merkel offered German support for a regional initiative in Venezuela. In a series of tweets, Jorge Arreaza lamented the German leader's subordination to the Trump administration and its desire to impose a blockade on Venezuela. He demanded that the German government respect Venezuela's sovereignty. If Germany wants to help, he added, it should use its influence to help lift the economic measures against the Venezuelan people. Police has intervened in Peru to prevent clashes between pro and anti-Keiko Fujimori supporters. Both rallies gathered outside the police station where the leader of Popular Force and daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori is being detained. Keiko has been arrested for alleged money laundering involving the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht.
First her father, and now her. What's next? The Fujimoris are here defending her. The whole Fujimori's family is here to show support because Keiko is not alone.
Fujimorism represents the corruption in the country. It represents influence in the institutions, and it does not represent democracy in essence.
Keiko Fujimori has published a letter to protest her innocence after being arrested. The leader of the Popular Force says she was arrested without any evidence. She condemned the political persecution of her and her party. Our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, has the latest on Keiko's arrest.
Several reactions have come after the arrest of Keiko Fujimori and the letter she published in social media addressing what happened. In the letter, she said her arrest is due to political revenge and persecution to her political party. However, different judges and political analysts think that there's enough evidence to point her as the leader of a criminal network. This is supported by the public prosecutor Jose Domingo Perez and his investigation. The investigations show Keiko would have organized a complete system to take illicit resources to finance her political campaign during the presidential election. Keiko remains in detention in the police headquarters.
We thank Jaime Herrera for that report. The construction of a new international airport in Mexico City has been the focus of community protests for years. Now, members of the transition team for the president-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador have been to listen to the affected residents.
The green landscape that surrounds the community of San Nicolás Tlaminca has not been the same for the last 2 years. The company that is building the capital's new international airport has turned the region into a landfill of toxic waste.
We are in a natural protected area of nearly 8,000 hectares. It was created in 2002, and it was clearly stated that in this area there should be no garbage dumps or mines.
People in the surrounding communities made clear to the transition team that they are opposed to this project. They said it has only brought devastation. Mines and quarries, many of them illegal, has caused irreversible damage to the environment. It has destroyed flora and fauna endemic to this central region of the country.
The environmental impact study for the airport said there will be 16 mines, but in the reality there are more than 160 authorized mines, plus all the illegal ones.
President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador promised to listen to all the parties involved in the building of the airport, a project which has already cost more than $13 billion.
They tell me there is no provision for an inquiry in the law. No, there isn't. But if you ask my opinion, I would like to have an inquiry.
The local communities have stood firm in saying that suspending construction is the only way out of this conflict, which could mar the government of López Obrador from the start.
This project is causing a catastrophe, not only for the environment, but also for us, because the people who live here are not taken into account in this project, except as cheap labor.
Businessmen, on the other hand, are defending what they say will be a pole of development for the country. As well as the airport itself, they are planning a network of toll roads connecting it with the Mexican capital, as well as hotels and shopping centers.
Thousands of supporters of Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega have marched in Managua to support their leader. The pro-Ortega Sandinistas accused the opposition of being part of a foreign-backed coup to unseat Ortega and lambasted them as terrorists.
I am marching to call for justice against the terrorists, to fight for and demand that those terrorists be punished, those who killed our police. Also for there to be peace like we had before, a peace which united Nicaraguans. People are demanding this, for the terrorists to stop bothering us.
And with just a few days to go until the Vatican declares Monsignor Oscar Romero a saint, social movements in El Salvador are demanding justice for his murder in 1980. They want those responsible to be brought to trial.
The Catholic faithful in El Salvador, along with human rights organizations, unions and citizens in general, are demanding that a judge in the capital speed up the criminal case against the murderers of Monsignor Romero.
We haven't been able to move forward with the case. We have talked to the judge about this, and he told us he has too much work.
Monsignor Romero was killed on March 24, 1980, as he celebrated Mass in the Church of Divine Providence in San Salvador. A truth commission set up under the peace agreements attributed the murder to death squads commanded by the now deceased Army Major Roberto Dobson.
There is an absence of justice. 38 years, the state has neglected the victims of the armed conflict. And I say victims because Romero is the first of those victims of the savage repression carried out in the 70s and 80s.
3 days ahead of his canonization by Pope Francis in the Vatican, the plaintiffs say the sanctity of Romero will not be complete until those who took part in his murder are brought to justice.
The judge should issue a formal request for Interpol to locate and deport Captain Álvaro Saravia. That is one of the demands being made. Another is to take steps to reconstruct the crime in which Monsignor Romero was killed.
Although there is joy at the canonization of Monsignor Romero on October 14th, the impunity enjoyed by his murderers leaves an unpaid debt of justice and reparations.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, along with former President Raúl Castro, has attended a ceremony to mark the 150th anniversary of the beginning of the independence war. Several other Cuban leaders also attended the event. The day commemorated the beginning of the War of Independence against Spanish colonial rule in 1868 in Granma province.
We have fought 150 years and will continue fighting until victory always. The revolution is the same, and the challenges are identical. An imperial siege from the outside, an annexation vocation of a few from within, of those who do not believe that the homeland can rise with its own forces, and as the only salvation, unity.
And Haiti's Caribbean coastline is being choked with tides of plastic waste. Beaches in the northern city of Cap Haitian are full of bags, bottles, plastic cutlery, and packaging materials. Some locals are trying to clean the shore, but waves keep bringing waste. About 8 million metric tons of plastic are dumped in the oceans every year. Colombia has recovered 38 ancient artifacts. This pre-Columbian ceramic pottery were plundered over a decade ago by a private collector in the U.S. The FBI recovered the artifacts that were illegally trafficked. The Colombian Institute of Anthropology and History will try to identify the pieces. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Brazilian citizens casted their vote in general elections. Telesul was there to bring you all the most important and immediate information about this election process. You witnessed the latest development of this event on our website and social networks. Coverage Brazil Decides 2018, only on Telesul, the news source of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. The sun has seen the first tuna auction at Japan's new fish market after the world-famous Tsukiji site closed down, ending an 83-year era. Let's dive into the story of how the world's largest fish market moved to a new location after decades of preparation.
It's just before dawn. Huge frozen tunas are laying lined up on the ground. Suddenly, bells signal the start of the auction. The bewildered bidding of customers echoes through the halls of Toyosu Fish Market. This is the new home of the world's biggest fish market.
It might take some time to get used to, by listening to your voices saying how you don't know how to use it yet. Together, we would like to develop this as the core market of Tokyo and Japan and make the Toyosu brand better day by day.
An era came to an end when hundreds of businesses with nearly 2,600 forklifts relocated from the old site. Opened in 1935, Skiji once handled 480 kinds of seafood worth $40 million every day, along with 270 different types of fruit and vegetable. It was renowned not only for world-class seafood, but for the close relationship between fishmongers, fiercely exacting chefs, and sushi tycoons.
Here you think you're coming to buy fish, but in fact it's about human relations. And that's what determines everything. The respect is mutual, as are trust and admiration. You have to admire and you have to have love. They have to accept how I cook, and I need to accept what they supply.
Skiji's tuna auctions used to make headlines with eye-watering prices, including a world record of $1.8 million paid for a 222-kilogram bluefin in a New Year's auction in 2013. The market also lured flocks of tourists from around the world, often lining up for hours the night before just to get one of the 120 spots in the tuna auctions.
It still hasn't really hit me, but I feel increasingly sad as the day approaches and also worried. And after this anxiety, I also feel angry as I wonder who this move is for and why it is necessary.
Critics and even many fishmongers said the facility was out of date, no longer fit for modern-day hygiene and fire safety standards. But most of the sellers would have preferred the iconic market to be renovated instead of moving to the new site. Nearly twice as big as the old one, Toyosu boasts state-of-the-art refrigeration facilities. However, many vendors are concerned, as it previously housed a gas plant leading to soil and groundwater contamination issues. But after decades of negotiations, the local government paid hundreds of millions of dollars to clean up the new facility.
Well, I'm getting old, but thinking about the future, I think this will be a fun place for young people to work at. I think they'll be happier here. I wish I could be one of them.
80% of Skiji fish traders oppose the relocation, saying it's too far from the center. But others hope to create a new tradition out of the new site. The demolition of Skiji started on the same day that the first tuna was sold at the new market. It will make space for temporary parking for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics.
Fishermen in the Gaza Strip are struggling as Israel has reduced their fishing zone. Israeli forces have reduced the fishing zone in 3 miles. Authorities said the decision followed Palestinians' attempts to harm police forces across the border. Traders in Gaza's fish market says prices have risen because supply of fish cannot meet the demands of 2 million people living in the enclave.
Fishing business is down. I'm working hard with my children. We are 10 people and we can't make a living. We go to the sea, but every day there are problems, so we don't have a good fishing. It is an unbearable life. We are unable to live like this.
We have no space. If we go north, the Israeli Navy will push us back, and if we go south, the Egyptians are there. So we're under siege that has no parallel in history.
Employees of the Culture Ministry in Greece are striking against the possible privatization of the country's landmarks. Though the government has denied it, demonstrators called for a 24-hour strike that shut down several archaeological sites and state museums. Employees are demanding a government regulation to clarify which cultural sites could be privatized. part of Greece's efforts to reform its economy after years of financial crisis includes the privatization of state assets. Africa's youngest billionaire has been kidnapped in Tanzania. Mohamed Dewji was kidnapped by gunmen from a gymnasium in the city of Dar es Salaam. Police has opened an investigation to locate him and the kidnappers. Dewji, head of the Metal Group, which operates in about 10 countries with interests in different economic sectors. A court in New York City has dropped part of the sexual assault case against producer Harvey Weinstein. The decision comes after Lucia Evans accused Weinstein of forcing her to perform oral sex when she was 21. Evans' lawyer said the court's decision shows a mishandling of the case. She was one of the first women who spoke out against Weinstein, inspiring the Me Too movement. Thousands of sculptors are putting finishes touches to idols for the upcoming Hindu festival of Durga Puja. The sculptures of goddess Durga will be the central of the celebrations. The profession has long been male-dominated, but some women idol makers are defying the tradition. Modern art and antiquities are blending in a new museum in Lebanon. A contemporary sculpture of a mortar missile is displayed alongside millennia-old statues. The exhibition includes 60 contemporary art pieces and around 400 antiquities from Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and Yemen. The museum's founders wanted to be a beacon of hope in a region overshadowed by jihadism. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.